What are the most dangerous places that we have ever been?
This place has been like abandoned.
It's like full of cobras.
If one of us was to get bit, that'd basically be like a fatal situation.
This episode of Becoming Brave is brought to you by Summit Adventure Fuel. Unlock your next adventure and get there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Becoming Brave. I'm your host, Mark Vins, co-founder of the Brave Wilderness YouTube channel, and I'm joined again today by my adventurous duo of Andrew and Asa, the extraordinaire film producers, videographers, editors, and my partners in adventure happenings. What's going on,
nicest
guys?
thing anyone's ever said about
Yeah,
me.
that was
Yeah.
a
I don't know.
generous description.
It's like the afternoon headed into the weekend, at least for filming this. I know it comes out on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, but yeah, I just feel good today, guys. How about you? How are you guys feeling?
Feeling great.
Feeling chipper.
Feeling a
Yeah.
little dangerous.
Ooh, a little foreshadowing in today's topic of the pod. But before we get in today's topic of the pod, what's been happening lately? Anything you guys been seeing floating around your feeds? Anything that we've been releasing that you found noteworthy?
Well, we just released Leeches, which was a unique video. Definitely one of the grossest ones we've ever done.
Leeches suck.
Yeah.
Was the thumbnail. I think it's right. Yeah. Right there it is. Leeches suck. It's brand new. It's on the Mark Vins channel, not yet released on Brave Wilderness, which it will be soon. But everybody who subscribes to the Mark Vins channel, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're likely already subscribed. If not, hit that subscribe button. But yeah, you get to see all my Brave Wilderness videos here first, which is very cool. But speaking of that video, leeches, they do suck pretty good. Suck a lot.
I'm still shocked by that one.
It was a lot of blood.
Yeah. And here's that we had to cut it almost short too, because they just weren't letting go of you. They went from literally being the size of probably like penny length and about as thick as, I don't know, a Q-tip to almost like a small water balloon.
Yeah,
like
no doubt we're gonna have a whole podcast on this video, and I will preface it by saying this: in terms of all the bite sting experiments, this was the longest in duration in terms of the actual bite. It was literally an hour of getting like bloodletted by by 3 hungry tiger leeches in Australia, which is a pretty good segue into today's topic, being what are the most dangerous places that we have ever been, whether it's filming Brave Wilderness content or on our own adventure travels. I know we've all had our own experiences. Obviously, I've been doing this for over 10 years on Brave Wilderness. You guys have now been for over 2 years, but I mean, Asa, you're a world traveler. Do you want to kick us off? What is the most dangerous place that you've ever been to?
Oh gosh. I mean, Brave Wilderness probably does take the cake in terms of putting me in environments that have venomous and or toxic animals that, could take you out pretty much immediately. But
Australia would definitely be one of those places.
Yeah. Like it just inherently is. But in terms of dicey situations that I've been in, funny enough, it probably was with my parents when we went. My brother was living down in Brazil for a while. This was like late 2020, 2021. So we went down to Brazil to visit my brother. We hadn't seen him in almost, I think, like 2 years because COVID hit and then borders were, locked up. But we're going down there. He's in a remote region of Brazil in Paraná, in a city called Guarapuava. But we couldn't actually fly into Guarapuava. We had to land in Sao Paulo and then fly to Curitiba. And from Curitiba, he was with his wife and at the time their newborn son, my nephew, Liam. And they were like, let's go on a nice family vacation right off. Like, we're going to pick you up from the airport and we'll go from there. And
that's how it always starts. Let's go on a nice stroll.
Yeah. And it should have been this beautiful spot. It is a UNESCO site, World Heritage site right on the coast. And we drove in there, had to leave the car behind, and you get on these little ferries that take you out to the small island that has no no cars, no motorcycles. There's no paved roads.
Were you guys going to go camp there, or?
So there is like a little town on it that
okay.
had like cottages, and there were some smaller like I don't want to call them resorts. They were like almost like eco lodges. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
being in Brazil makes sense. Yeah.
But we hadn't booked a place in the town. We had actually, and this is where it started to get confusing because
you guys went on a flyer trip, like just winged it?
So they had booked this, what looked like online, it was on Airbnb, to be like a beautiful cottage on the beach, like 5 bedrooms, like dreamy tropical resort looking spot, and it was like remote, cabin on the water. And
how long ago was this? Did we timestamp this?
This was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before. Okay.
Yeah, just before Brave. So when we get there, we get to the actual island. We realize once we're there, we're like, oh, we're pretty short on cash. It was a cash only island. Realistically, it was like no one had card readers. There was not that much electricity, and got the newborn.
To be fair, some places that are somewhat hazardous to travel through, you don't always want to carry a lot of cash.
Yeah. So I mean, we had a limited amount, but when we like talked to a local, he was like, oh, that house isn't even close to the little village that is on this island. He's like, it is 2.5 miles down that coastline out that way. And we're like, okay, how do we get there? And he's like, oh, I don't know. You could get like a fisherman to like take you down by boat and drop you there. So that's exactly what we did. Like we get on this island with like suitcases. Like it's all our stuff that we brought to Brazil. So my parents and I are carrying suitcases into the water, throwing it onto like a fishing boat with the newborn, and we climb on the boat and and then it's like we're driving, 15 minutes down the shoreline and pull up, and it's like a house surrounded by no other houses. And
so wait, a house in the jungle? Or?
In the jungle, right on the ocean. And we literally have to hop out into the water. There's no dock. There's nothing. It is a sandy beach, admittedly.
That's nice. At least it was like a rocky, craggy beach.
But like as we go up to the house, it became very clear that this place has been like abandoned for at least like a full season. Ooh. So like all the wood on it is just beat. It's been battered by the wind and the salt. But like the windows are broken. There's no like locks on the doors. The electricity wasn't working. No Wi-Fi. We have no connection. There's no clean water.
Wait, was it the house that was in the pictures though? Like it was actually the right place?
It was the house in the pictures. Okay. Yeah. It's just you could like never tell from the pictures.
So it wasn't like you ended up at the wrong Airbnb. Okay,
no,
that's definitely happened.
Yeah. So we like that guy leaves and it's like almost sunset. And like we're trying to get in contact with the host and like nothing is working. And it's just like, shit, we are going to have to spend the night here. And just like house smelled like mildew. There's broken glass everywhere. It's like, this is not a place for a newborn child or that. But long story short, we abandoned it the next day. And a few of us walked down kind of along through like a jungle path all the way back to the town. And like flagged down a person. We're like,
oh, you walked 2 miles?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not.
It's not that far.
How'd you get back?
It actually might have been more than 2 miles. It might be. It was probably a 45-minute walk. It wasn't too. Actually, that's probably 2 miles
through the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It wasn't too bad getting back. But I mean, you're beat after that. I slept on literally like the porch that night, like just like, and the flies there were brutal. Oh.
Biting flies?
Yeah, they're biting flies.
I've been in that situation before. That is a lot more intense than people would probably give it credit for. Just hearing that, like when there's a swarm of biting flies, they're inescapable.
Yeah,
they find you.
It was brutal. I literally had little like their little gnat bites on me for probably a month afterwards. But got there, I found like the best eco lodge in that town. I was like, we're splurging. We're all splurging, and we're
isn't it
everyone's
funny?
Getting a room.
There's nothing like a bad experience that can like make you open up your wallet real fast.
Yeah. Booked up the last like 4 rooms in that place, and I was like, we're all moving down here.
Nice.
And they took card, luckily.
And so Was the remoteness of it and just the general condition like the danger factor to you? Like, was it scary? Like, kind of explain.
It was scary because we really had a lack of water, a lack of cell connection. This was like night one, coming in from like when we landed. That was like the end of the day, So it was
a long day.
It was a huge day. It was really scary with a newborn too, of like that environment. I mean, he was about one at this point.
This is a classic tale of a what is supposed to be this idyllic, beautiful vacation on the beach that just takes a hard left turn and goes the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, it was just everything went wrong. That said, it's way more memorable than I think it would have been otherwise.
Right. And what part of Brazil was this again?
This was a little outside of Curitiba, which was Isle do Mel.
And I say in relation to Rio, where is how far away?
It's probably like a 3-hour flight south.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So pretty far south.
Pretty far south. Still tropical though.
Okay, cool. I've actually never been to Brazil. The other team has, but I've never been. I hope we get to go soon.
Yeah, I mean it is a beautiful country. There's so much there. I mean you got to be on your wits at times, but I do think it's probably a little misunderstood by Americans in general.
Yeah. It's super dangerous. Let's not beat around the bush. Like going to Brazil, like you can find some really dangerous places. Like it's definitely one of those countries where if you don't go with like local knowledge or like a reputable tour guide, you can easily end up in a situation like you found yourself in, or much, much worse. Like there's definitely like poverty-stricken areas where if you show up there as like, an American traveler, you're probably going to get mugged pretty quick.
Yeah, you can definitely get robbed. But
yeah,
I will say if you went into like a city like Sao Paulo or something, it's it's a first world, world-class city in the way of
totally.
But
I'm not saying it's not
you travel
all
outside,
Brazil.
you got to be aware of it's definitely have your wits about you.
Every place has good spots and bad spots.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much like a worldwide truth. Like you can find dangerous spots in every single state in the United States, right? But the amount of places you could find yourself in that are not safe in Brazil are much, much higher. And you just need to know how to get around and what to do. And, you need to know like not to travel by certain roads, or you need to travel only by day. Like that kind of stuff is local knowledge, and it's not very well accessible like via Google. So that's, I think, my takeaway of your story is always make sure you have like a local guide.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even when you do, maybe splurge for the understand why a place might be cheaper than
and pictures don't always tell the full story either. Then you can definitely get duped by a good photo. That's pretty. I mean, I think we've all been there before in terms of like being disappointed by a listing online. But it sounds like you guys had a good time.
Yeah, we did. Ultimately, it was the first time I got to meet my nephew at that point. So
really?
that was
That's cool.
It was really, really exciting.
And Andrew,
I think probably my most dangerous environment did come from a Brave Wilderness Productions that we were all there for.
Ooh.
So
do tell. I'm curious which one you pick.
So I'm gonna go with our hunt for the earless monitor.
Oh,
that jungle environment, because I did have an acute animal encounter at the end of it. That was pretty wild. But so to set the scene, this took place in Borneo,
Malaysian side
of Borneo, just about the Indonesian side, because we were basically right on the border, like way up in the mountains. But it started with us not getting the right rental car to travel up into the mountains. And we basically had like a little hatchback for 5 full-grown men and a bunch of camera equipment and 3 weeks worth of travel provisions.
I've seen bigger brake pads on a 10-speed bicycle.
That's the truth.
These pads maybe had never been swapped.
So it was if we were going to be able to get to this really remote place we were staying, and that turned out to be true. Like we barely made it up the mountain, and this was after probably a 90-minute ride from the nearest big city, and then plus another probably like 45 minutes of weaving in and out of the mountains together. So we by this point we were really like on our own, and there was really not a soul around.
So it's important to tell everybody why were we going to these extremes and lengths to go to this place?
So we were searching for a very rare lizard, perhaps the ultimate herpetology find, the earless monitor. Oh yeah, we can pull that up.
Yeah, let's get a visual of that. There it is.
It is super cool looking.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are incredibly rare.
Yeah, but they live in a very specific elevation range that naturally we had to go into the mountains to target. So that's what brought us up into kind of like the highlands of Borneo, if you will.
They're a prehistoric ancient creature. They're called earless monitors because they don't have ears, but they are semi-related. They're not a monitor per se, like you would see like a goanna in Australia, but they're close enough on the lineage that they're called a monitor, but they are definitely their own animal for sure. And there was a time when they thought they were completely extinct, and they've only rediscovered in recent decades.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody to this point when we were filming had actually like put this on YouTube yet. No one had found one.
Yeah. We were working with Lockie from Australian Wildlife Encounters, and he had some pretty specific info about what kind of elevation they lived at, which brought us up into the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, we are up in the mountains at this. You guys will get to see this in a video coming out probably around Halloween. But it's like this abandoned like resort, like this abandoned golf course, basically, like way up in the mountains. No one was staying there. We stayed in a house that was like it was like borderline a mansion, but like it was on this block of other big houses, completely abandoned, like not a soul around.
Yeah, and you have to really preface it by like the border crossing guards that gated this place. Like there was a bunch of cops, and armed guards.
Because the only reason that people not related to the resort would go there is basically like illegally cross the border into the Indonesian side of Borneo.
Yeah.
So like that, it was like a border stop basically. Like that's the only reason those guys were there.
And there were multiple gates to get in too. It wasn't just like, oh, you make a wrong turn at the 7-Eleven and you end up at the border. It was like many layers to get to this. And it was weird that it was abandoned because when you look at it on a satellite, it's a major resort.
And to add to it too, ultimately we were climbing up in this car, so like there was ups and downs that really tested the brakes, but ultimately we were climbing. As soon as we got up there, we realized like, oh boy, we might not be able to make it back down in this thing. Like we had to stop the car like every 10 seconds to like let the brakes cool off because you just start smelling them smoking and all that stuff. But basically we were really, really isolated, and we were going to be a long way from help if anything went wrong. Like there was basically no
service,
no phone service. It was just we were
truly felt
really long way from help. I think probably the furthest away we've been from help, even including going to the Galapagos.
Yeah,
and
I would agree with that.
And so that's like the kind of environment we were in, where we felt very much on our own. And then to look for these earless monitors, we really had to do some serious bushwhacking, like straight through the jungle. Like if you go to Google Earth and you like look at like the thickest pocket of jungle like out there, which is just solid canopy.
We weren't on a trail.
No, there are no trails.
Yeah.
And like if you ever been to like a tropical area and you like randomly like look off the road into like a patch of jungle, you're like, wow, it's impossible to walk through that. That's what we were trudging through basically.
I'm trying to find a picture of what this would look like.
The ultimate bushwhacking.
Yeah. This is
any of us do it?
None of it's thick enough.
Yeah.
We were walking through
photographers don't even go this deep.
Extremely tight creek that was running down to a more major river. So
it's sort of like this image here, but like
it's kind of like that. That's pretty accurate.
Like imagine trying to crawl into the middle of that picture.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was basically like for miles.
This is very accurate.
Yeah. Imagine there's a little creek in the middle down there and we're just walking our way through it, basically.
And it's mostly bamboo.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more challenging.
Yeah, because they're like trees and you instinctually go to reach for them. Yeah. And then they just
a lot of prehistoric grass.
Yeah, they just collapse into nothing.
Every like 10 feet or so there would either be like something that wasn't bamboo but looked like it, covered in spikes, just extremely sharp branches of certain things, and then there was the hanging vines that had spikes on them, and then there were like
we took a lot of mystery stings from insects.
Yeah, there would be a
like just
one point I just had something in my shirt absolutely ruining me
over and over.
It literally was like, there's a thing on my back, and Lockie's like, there's nothing on your back, mate. And then I'd be like, there is. And then he lifts my shirt and he goes, ooh.
Yeah, there is something there.
When Lockie goes ooh, it's probably bad.
The other thing worth mentioning is there's not only earless monitors in these creeks, it's like full of cobras.
Yeah, so basically why this takes the cake for me for the most danger is that there were a lot of venomous snakes around, and we were a long, long way from help. If one of us was to get bit, that'd basically be like a fatal situation.
Yeah,
or if you fall and get injured in that creek, you were pretty, like, especially when we were at midpoints, it would be really hard to get a guy that like couldn't walk out.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, so we did this ultimately for 2 nights, and the first night was pretty rough. Like it was.
I think you're putting it lightly. I think that was maybe the hardest single day of production that the 3 of us have ever done.
Yeah, it was extremely challenging, and then compounded by that, like that prospect.
I think it was harder too because we didn't know how deep we were gonna go or what we were like bracing ourselves for that specific night. It was like, are we gonna have a quick look? And then it was like, oh, this environment actually looks really promising. So we kept going further and further downstream, climbing down waterfalls, like.
And like
sometimes falling down waterfalls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Andrew.
Oh yeah. So this whole time we're also going down a creek. So like naturally you're getting like, I prefer to climb something rather than go down, because you're ultimately getting, if you're going down something, you're getting pulled towards stuff out of your control. Versus if you're climbing, you're kind of like, taking your own time. But I was at the back of the group, and by the time you guys had like gone over all this like wet terrain, you guys had turned it into an absolute ice sheet. Like everything was so slippery. So you're like, you guys are like we were trying to like ultimately like slide down these little rocks, but by the time that into like these pools of water basically, but you guys were doing like controlled descents into it. By the time all 3 of you had slid down the rock, it was like glass, and like you guys like just like and just controlled the descent, and I was just trying to like hold on to just like the slimiest, slipperiest rock of all time. And then like it ultimately ended with me like there was one particular rock that like you guys slid down and had like gotten the like the base layer of like moss that was like kind of grippy off it, so I was just on a slick. And like if you controlled your way down, you could like ultimately reach like knee deep water. But if you slipped, you were gonna go like into this little pocket of water that was like over your head.
Yeah.
Thank God that pool existed, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Because then I like ultimately just like landed and just like immediately fully submerged into the water.
No,
you're picking up speed, man.
You got air. I remember because I was in front of you, and I looked down and I saw what was happening, where all the moss was getting like wiped away, and it just was essentially like a mud snot rock. And I was like, don't step over there. And you actually stepped away from the slide to some more moss, but it was far away.
Yeah.
And you somehow
ended up me being like really starfish for some reason.
You went inverted. Yeah, like totally backflopped. It was so funny. And I felt so bad at the same time.
You guys were pissed at each other.
No, here's the thing. I was pissed prior to this because I was resisting getting like soaking wet.
There was an attempt to not get wet for a while.
But like I literally completely submerged, and I emerged what felt like a new man. I was like, okay, I'm completely soaked. I can't get any more wet than this.
So this is really interesting, because I'll describe the experience of going on these productions a lot like being in a fight. It's like you know how like in a boxing match you have multiple rounds and a fighter can only like take so many punches before they get knocked out. I find that to be the same when you're hiking through like a really rough environment. Like you could take so many punches and so many shots before it just like takes you out.
Yeah.
And we had been really going through it this night because we're trying to track Lockie down too, by the way.
Who's just racing.
He was resilient. He is an absolute maniac. When him and Max, those guys can cover so much ground in some of the worst environments you can imagine. And we're trying to keep up with him because he's excited to find this lizard too.
He's having a field day out there.
Yeah,
like
he's
loving it. And I remember at the end of that night, he even was just like, that was a fun one.
That was bad. He's like, that was bad. But Andrew, you guys have cameras, so you're trying not to get wet.
That's
it's
a big
annoying.
part of it.
You guys are getting stung by stuff. The bamboo's crashing all around us. You're getting spined. It's just like uppercut after uppercut after uppercut, trying to get into this like really rough environment to find this small elusive lizard. And I could just you can feel it in the crew. And because I've been there myself, when the anxiety and just like your limits getting pushed. And I knew yours was right there, Andrew. I was like, even being like, you gonna be all right? And you were just like, I'm fine. I'm like, all right, man, cool. And then I saw you inverted. It was like slow motion as you were falling into the water. And I'm like, that's a knockout. That's a knockout. I'm not sure we're going to be filming after this one.
No, I thought I was going to be pissed when I came out of the water, but like it was actually like sort of a relief to be totally like as screwed as you could get. Like,
once you're soaking wet, it was the second night was so much better.
Exactly. So this was just one night of this. We had to go back to back for this. But so basically in the mountains, night one was in this really like a small little, like the tiniest little creek to like what was sort of like a main river. The second night we started in that main river, so we were basically just wading through the water. At this point, like you and I had talked about, like we're just gonna get completely soaked anyway, so like doesn't matter. So night two felt a lot more organized. We were a lot more prepared, but still there was that like sneaking feeling of like, what about snakes? Like it was just like kind of always in the back of your mind. And so first night, I don't think we really saw much of anything. I think we were just focused on getting through the environment. I don't know.
There was some we found cat snake. Or some
that was the second night.
Was that
it was in that main creek. It was right over us.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, so night two starts. We're a lot more prepared mentally for what's about to happen, and like also packed more efficiently too. And then we basically crawl right underneath like a 7-foot snake. It's always bizarre finding a big animal. And it's already just like right above
in the tree.
Yeah, it's
on like thin branches.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it felt like we were kind of like on the right path to find more reptiles. So we keep pushing through. We're walking like in this relatively wide river, so we're like able to get around a little bit better. We get to one of these really skinny creeks, so we walk up a little bit and walk back down. And we actually had a really cool moment up at the top of one of these creeks because there was this big pool of water with like a massive water, like the biggest waterfall that we had seen yet, like one we wouldn't climb. That
was
kind of
really beautiful.
Yeah. And we all like cannonballed into it. It was pretty cool moment.
You get grimy. You're just covered in stuff and there's bugs crawling all over you, so it's nice to clean yourself off.
We were at this point we were just like cannonballing into the water.
I mean, you're in full hiking boots. Everything is wet.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And then so we're walking back down, and this is what kind of like sealed the deal ultimately for me making this like the most dangerous moment for me in Brave Wilderness was like we're just walking down the creek. We have like it's pitch black. There's zero light pollution out there, so we can only see like what's in the beam of our lights. And flip the beam of the light, and there's just a cobra racing downriver with the current. And I'm like, whoa,
just
and
head up.
Yeah, exactly. And
you're like, I hope that's not a cobra.
Yeah. Mark's like, it's a cobra, mate. And then so naturally I get out of the way, and of course naturally he grabs it immediately. He's like, it's a spitting cobra. Don't make eye contact. And so naturally I'm like, but the second I do that, like I'm peeking out from like the side of the brim of my hat, it spits and it lands on my legs, and Lucky's like, "Where'd it get you?" And I'm like, the pants. He's like, "Oh, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
that's a good accent. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, you spend a lot of time with the guys. Kind of, you start like doing it anyway. Yeah. Oh gosh,
he's a great dude.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised that that's your answer.
Yeah, it was like definitely the most interaction I've had with like a dangerous animal before. Like, it was just crazy that he was like, "Don't make eye contact," and I'm like, and then it actually does the thing that it does. It was pretty crazy.
A lot of cobras out there.
Yeah, no shortage of venomous, bitey creatures out there.
Yeah, man. It's crazy how much going into some of these environments you bring all the resistance with you from our very safe and luxurious world that is, major society, I would say. And then you go into these like rough environments and everything in your body resists it to a point. And then you
let go,
relax and let go. And as soon as you let go, you kind of become one with the environment.
Yes, this was a big lesson in becoming one with the environment.
And it usually takes me like even a day or two, even still. Like when we go to Costa Rica, there's biting flies and you're getting hit by mosquitoes, and the natural urge is to be like, don't get bit. And then at some point you just relent and you're like, okay, I guess I'm just going to get destroyed by these mosquitoes. It is what it is.
I would like to talk about one little incident we had in Costa Rica that did derail things quite a bit.
Okay.
Remember when we found like the hive of ticks?
Oh.
So there was like this ball of like what looked like dust kind of, and we were filming I think we were filming like poison dart frogs or something like that.
Yeah, we were filming the Blippi video.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it looked like wood or something, but we all kind of just walked through it or over it.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be like this massive colony of like,
millions.
Millions
Yeah,
upon
they were
millions
literally
of the tiniest ticks you could ever imagine.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
we're all like covered in this fine dust, and we're all like, we all stop and we're like looking at our hands like all together, probably like crazy out
They're
there.
moving.
And we're like,
yeah.
they're moving. Yeah, exactly. And then so we like kind of like ran back to the hut and like basically like stripped down.
It was
like,
terror for a little while. They like
yeah, especially
I remember
like
Mark got it the worst of
Yeah.
us. Of
because you were in there with the animal.
your shirt wasn't tucked. Like my shirt was tucked in.
Yes. Here.
Yeah, they are the
These.
God, it was like small. It was like they were even smaller than that.
This I'd say this is accurate.
yeah.
This is what we're dealing with here.
It was nuts.
But
yeah.
like, especially being here in New England, like Lyme disease is like a serious thing that can mess you up for a long time. Like,
Oh yeah.
there was definitely a bit of a
I
scare there.
love reading that. Costa Rican scientists find new bacteria and tick species that has not been found in the country.
Right on.
Yeah, that's
Good.
Yep.
So these ticks, this is what it is right here. They were so small, it literally looked like you said sand walking across your body. And I don't know if you guys remember that. Like we instantly like went back to the house, stripped all the clothes
Yep.
off. We're doing tick checks, just ripping ticks off each other. You couldn't wipe them off because they were already embedded.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I thought they were some kind of like we have chiggers,
Yeah.
which are related to ticks, but are not quite ticks. The way they bore into your skin is totally different than how a tick bites and holds on and sucks blood. So I thought that's what they were. I was like, oh, as long as we get these off of our skin, we'll be good to go. And they weren't coming off. And I was like, what's going on here? You couldn't just wipe them off. You had to like almost grind them off with your fingernail. And,
Yeah.
I mean,
I was using a Leatherman, like scraping them off with like a knife, basically.
and it was not a few ticks, guys. We're talking hundreds and hundreds
Yeah.
of ticks. I remember going in the shower because they were like going for armpits and stuff. I went right in the shower and I was just like using the bar of soap to just scrub them off. That was the worst tick infestation I've ever had.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was a
By a
bad
mile.
one.
Well, we looked
That was Costa
so
Rica.
crazy too. And the front of our like
I was
little
standing-
Costa Rica bungalow, we were all just down to our boxers, like on the front
Scraping
lawn.
my skin with a
Like-
knife. like what the hell is going
Yeah.
on?
I remember
there?
the terror when you you ripped your shirt off, and I don't know if it was me or Andrew. We were like, "Mark, you're back." It's like you were like,
Covered.
because you were like, "Guys, are there any like over here?" And you had like maybe like 100 of them just.
Oh my
Like-
gosh. And I remember we still didn't know they were ticks until later that night. Brian, who owns the property, we were having pizza, and it was like, yeah, man, have you ever like stepped into like, you know, like you guys have those chiggers, you know, the things, the like the tiny little tick looking things? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, because we had that happen to us. We were just covered in them. He's like, yeah, those are ticks. Actually.
You know when the local guy's like, "Ooh, you guys messed up." Like,
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, God." That always has an extra sting to it. But anyway, circling back to Borneo, going back down the mountain was also such a like to describe how difficult it would have been to get to help. When we ultimately left the following day, we had to stop like every 10 seconds to let the brakes cool down. But then we started doing the calculus of like, all right, if we fly off the side of the cliff because the brakes give out, which was like starting to feel like a possibility. We were like, should we be buckled in and trying to open the door, or
Yep.
should we not be buckle
remember-
up or buckle in? That was like a big debate on the way down the mountain. It's like, what would be better if we were flying out, like toppling down the cliffside? Like,
I had read something the night before. I was like, I heard that you're supposed to like jump out onto your back, and you guys were like, no,
I
I'm
was
not doing that.
I was definitely on team bail.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Do not stay in the car.
Yeah. And then we were talking about, we were like, because I think Lockie was driving, and we were like, don't go to the left. Smash us into the side of the mountain if you have to.
Yeah.
Like,
We got full insurance on the vehicle.
yeah.
But yeah,
God, that
even
thing
Lockie
did
was
not come
saying
back the same.
the brakes are getting super long. Like when brakes start to go, they say the pedal gets long because you have to push it further and further to get it to stop. And he's like, I'm on the floor. So we need to get off this mountain. But
hey, we made it.
We made it through.
Dropped that thing off better than we found it.
Yeah, that was oof, what a trip that was. And unfortunately, we did not find the earless monitor.
Oh yeah, we didn't find it.
But it was still a cool experience. We
Yeah.
got a great video out of it that's coming out. this Halloween. I think this October. You'll see.
Yes,
that'll be cool.
That was focused on the
It's a really fun
spinning
one.
cobra
Mm-hmm.
and the abandoned hotel.
Ooh, that place is gnarly.
It was a cool.
I actually want to go back and make a horror film there.
Yeah.
It's so
So
scary.
that whole compound could really be turned into like a great
Zombie apocalypse
Yeah.
film. Yeah. If the producers of The Last of Us are listening to this would be a great location if you ever wanted to get somewhere else, especially in East Asia.
Oh yeah.
It's gnarly. Oh man. Well,
All right,
Yeah. So that's definitely mine. But I
good
think
pick.
Mark, I'm sure you have the worst. In fact, I know you've got a handful of worse experiences.
I've had some doozies over the years, that's for sure. In terms of like most dangerous places that I have ever been, and it's all been with Brave Wilderness. I did have some travel prior to us, creating the channel internationally. I did get to visit Venezuela once when I was in college, and that was super cool. I was really grateful to have had that experience then, because now it's almost impossible to travel there given the political situation and the very sad things that are happening down there. But I got to see Angel Falls and all that. Those experiences before Brave Wilderness are really what sort of inspired me to like want to go down this career path anyway. So yeah, that was gnarly. It was a trip that I went on. I think I was a junior in college. But in terms of during Brave Wilderness, we've done some pretty extreme travel experiences. I mean, gosh, we've been to every continent besides Antarctica at this point. South America, Central America. We've been to Africa, been to East Asia. I've, done a little bit in Europe at this point. But when it comes to the place that I think of like the most dangerous experience that I've ever had, it's without question the trip to the Congo when we were filming Brave Mission for our YouTube original series. And that was right after the pandemic had really started to relent a little bit. Like people were working again. It was in 2021. So it was the second year of
things
the
ramping
pandemic.
back up.
But it was still very volatile. Like there was a lot of protocol, like how to travel, how are we going to do this? We actually had to delay the production of going to the Congo for almost 8 months. We were going to go the fall of 2020, but there was just no way to pull it off. So we redirected to spring of 2021. And in terms of, so here's the here's the real story that like a lot of people, I've never really talked about this before actually. So I'm trying to compartmentalize how I want to divulge some of the background of how it actually happened.
So it's the Congo that is the most dangerous for you?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's the Congo. The DRC specifically, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it is easily one of the most dangerous places on the planet in terms of, risk to life, human hazard, wildlife hazard, travel hazard, just being there hazard. There's a lot of reasons why the Congo is dangerous, and I'll get into more of those in a second. But we were originally supposed to go to Rwanda to film mountain gorillas for this Brave Mission series. The whole idea was going to be a multi-adventure series where we visited the front lines of conservation, like the most dangerous places to do research or to try to save wildlife. And we started it in Africa because I always wanted to film mountain gorillas. That was like, for me, on my bucket list, there was like great white sharks, mountain gorillas were right there between number 1 and number 2. So we were originally supposed to film in Rwanda, which Rwanda and Kigali is quite modern. It's very safe. It's first world. But, because of a lot of the protocols that they put in place with like masking around the gorillas, not only around the gorillas, but in the park at all times, because the pandemic had heightened their security, they would not allow me to be on camera at all without a mask, like in the country. Like you have to have a mask if you're on camera because we have these protocols. It was the middle of the pandemic. That's the way things were, even in America. So we were like, hey, that's not going to work for our production. Like, where else can we go? And this is about the same time that I was beginning to do work with rewild.org, Leonardo DiCaprio's foundation, and was linking up with them about maybe having one of the Brave missions be about their conservation work. And they were doing work in the Congo. Mm-hmm. So that's how we diverted from going to Rwanda to pivoting to the Congo, which of course they're neighboring countries in Africa, in Central Africa, but they couldn't be more different in terms of risk. I would say anyone with the resources can easily and safely go to a country like Rwanda and film mountain gorillas and expect to be just fine. Whereas the Congo, when I was introduced to Emmanuel Demerode, the park director of Virunga, which is the park where the gorillas live, he told me point blank, I can get you in to the park. I can get you into the Congo. I cannot guarantee that you're going to get out. And that was the first and only time that I've ever been told that by somebody that I not only respect, but I trust, to say, like, you might not make it. That's a very profound thing to absorb. You hear those words and you're like, okay. It starts to sink in. You're like, wow, like this is the real deal. It doesn't get any more real than that. Unfortunately, because of the rebel militias and the political upheaval and just the, poverty-stricken situation there, the regard for life is just much, much lower, and people die a lot. I don't know the exact age, but the mortality rate and the average age is, I believe it's right around 50 years old or in the 40s. Like, people don't live a long time in the Congo, and a lot of it's because of violence. So like there's illness, violence, lack of healthcare, lack of water. There's so many humanitarian problems going on in the DRC, let alone the crime. It's this melting pot of bad situation. To go there is an extraordinary risk. However, it is one of the most important places in the world when it comes to conservation and preservation, because the rainforest there is being chopped down at a rate faster than anywhere else on the planet. And it's the second largest rainforest on the planet. So it's literally the lungs of Africa, and they're chopping it down for firewood just so they can boil water for drinking and for cooking their food, because there is no electricity, there's no infrastructure, and there's a lot of opponents there that are not allowing the population to thrive. They don't want them to. They want the poverty to stay, because they can do all their bad things under the guise of lack of infrastructure and lack of government. So
from like a wildlife perspective, it sounds like you could have done this, relatively safely in Rwanda, but it sounds like the danger is what brought you there ultimately.
Right. And once I learned more about the story, watched another documentary on Virunga, I was really inspired by Emmanuel's work there, and the person who told me he couldn't get me out. I was very inspired that, you have this person from a very wealthy family who he thought it was important enough for him to move him and his family down there. And he had actually been shot, in the line of duty as the head park ranger. The rangers down there are risking life and limb every single day to protect those gorillas. They literally have to track these gorillas every single day, every hour of the day, to make sure they're not poached. They're super
So what's the situation
vulnerable.
for the gorillas? What is their main threat?
So their main threat is poaching. They bring a lot on the black market, especially for the babies. So they need to protect these gorillas, and there are not many of them left. They are on the rebound because of the work of Virunga National Park and the other parks, the Volcanoes Park, that is 3 different countries. You have DRC, Uganda, and Rwanda, and they sort of make this trifecta around this Volcanoes National Park, where the only place in the world these mountain gorillas live. So they are now getting out of the endangered status, but for a while they were critically endangered, down to like 100 gorillas. So, but they're on a big rebound. So that's good. It's good news, but it doesn't mean that the threat of poaching is going away. Also, the bad guys, right? The rebels, and these guys are running drugs. It's like human trafficking, the worst of the worst stuff, right? It is what these guys are doing. They want the park out of there. They want to run them out, because the more lawless it is, the more they're free to
carry on their enterprise,
do all their bad things. Yeah. So, and look, I don't want to delve too much into the political turmoil of the situation. It's very, very sad. It's actually, there's a lot going on right now because the rebels just stormed Goma. I actually just posted recently about, some humanitarian efforts for the park for people to donate. I made a donation to them, actually. I think they still need a lot of help, but I just felt drawn to the story because there's not many people or filmmakers that are willing to risk what it takes to go to these places and tell these stories. And Brave Mission, the theme of it was like, we're going to go to the places most filmmakers would not. So that's where it really tested my conviction to the belief in how powerful our stories could be. And like, should I go and do this? Should I risk my own life to go and make a stand and stand beside people like Emmanuel and the park rangers to tell the story? And I wanted to do it. Felt like a calling, but it doesn't mean that I got to do it without the fear, without being scared, without, the dynamics of not even really telling my immediate family that I was going. They thought I was going. So this is a true story. Like, I did not tell my parents. I did not tell anyone. The only person who knew that I was going to the Congo were my fiance, now my wife at the time. My fiance at the time, now my wife. She knew. I told, obviously, the company. We had a big production crew at the time, and we had like to the point where we had special forces security who had to travel with me to go to this place. Yeah, like legit, military badasses with guns had to keep us safe. And I think it's worth pointing out, this is a place that you're not going to see like many Westerners, let alone just white people in general. So like, not to make it a race thing, but you stick out. Like a white person in this part of Africa, like, definitely stands out. And if you're wearing like even remotely nice clothes or nice shoes, like, people will murder you just to get your shoes. That's how poor it is, because most people live on like a $2 or $3 a day budget. So if people have a chance to get that life from you, they'll take it.
Is this true? I heard this, I think, from another travel YouTuber that ended up going to the DRC. That when you go into the airport and are like leaving, like, you have to pay off everyone for everything. Yeah.
So there's a lot of this that did not make the documentary, which is Brave Mission. I would say, out of all the things I've ever made for Brave Wilderness, this still, to this day, is the thing I'm the most proud of in terms of like what it took to make, what it represented. We raised over $700,000 for the Rangers in the Congo. Just pulling it up so we can scrub through a little bit of it when I get to the nicer stuff. But like, I just want to paint the picture that wasn't told in the story, because this was in the height of the pandemic. I went to Rome to acclimate for, I think, 6 days, because it wasn't 12 hours, but it was still like 8 or 9 hour time difference. At the time I was living in on the East Coast, so that helped a little bit. But during my time in Rome, we had there was COVID outbreaks in of course there was COVID. It was COVID everywhere. We didn't know at the time though, but there were COVID outbreaks in the park, which, by the way, this park is enormous. We're talking thousands of square miles. Like, it's huge. Like, you have to take a plane ride to get from the top to the bottom of the park. You don't just drive through it. The fact that there were some cases there, the people on the team who were going, we lost some of the crew. They didn't die. They just bowed out. They bailed. And I don't fault anybody for doing that, by the way. This isn't like you didn't really know. This was a really scary time. But
so they bailed out of fear, not COVID, right?
Right.
Like they weren't sick. They were just
out of fear. Out of fear.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm not going to name any names, obviously, to protect those people, because it's not fair to do that. But that's kind of the things we were dealing with. So we're dealing with having to get special forces trained security, right? Like badasses to come and guard us with guns. We had COVID that was hot and happening there. And then just the Congo itself, where I think the year or two prior, the Italian ambassador to the Congo, so like an ambassador level person that has extreme security, was gunned down on the way to the park. So yeah, like and people, like, again, the human trafficking, the kidnapping, the robbery, the extortion, like the people get held for ransom, kidnapped all the time. Like, there's a real risk that this can happen to you, even if you have armed guards and personnel with you, which all that, and this is all happening like in real time, guys. Like I'm in Rome, people are leaving the team. I don't even know if this trip's going to happen. I'm on my own. My family doesn't know I'm there. This is easily going to be the most dangerous trip I've ever attempted. And I started having like a lot of self-doubt. I'm like, is this even worth it? Like, is this stupid? Am I the right person to tell this story? Like, I'm a wildlife YouTuber. Is this something that, should I be the one doing this, really, to get to the point? And I ultimately decided, like, this isn't something I'm going to have a chance to do forever. And I may never have the chance to do something quite like this again. So I'm going to trust my instincts here and believe in the security team and all the people that we put in place. Because we did even like our own version of a COVID bubble, right? Did all these things. And I was like, I'm going to go for this. I'm the team lead. I can't shy away from the dangers. So went into it. And as soon as, to get to your question, sorry, I just want everyone to know the context of this. As soon as we landed in the DRC, it was something else. We landed near sunset. And because everybody pretty much uses fire to boil water and to cook their food there was like this war-torn vibe. There was all these like UN planes on the tarmac. You get off on the tarmac, it looked like the hot zone. It looked like there was, and there looked very much like a crisis. Like there's all these crisis management planes and World Health people, and it was like a movie set, but real life and real danger. And when we got into the airport, there was like a big security barrier, and going through that, it was like cash. They said, bring your $100 bills to pay off. You couldn't have any crinkles in the bills. They had to be perfect. They had to be of a certain date because there were certain bills that were easier to counterfeit. So and look, I'm not looking to throw shade at the DRC and their government or anything, but I'm just telling you what my experience was like going through the airport. I was brought into a room, me and the producer, and it was a dark room with like a light on the table, just stacks of $100 bills this high. Like,
wow.
I thought I was walking into like a cartel room. Like it was crazy. And that was my first experience of being in the DRC. Got through that, obviously. Leaving the airport, there was like almost like a crowd erupting outside of the airport to try to get bags and to hustle. You go places and people are trying to like sling tourist merch and stuff like that.
Or like try and get like a taxi.
Yeah.
A black taxi.
Give you a
ride.
ride.
Try to take you.
Yeah. Give you a ride, stuff like that. So we seen the scene, and we had the park rangers there with us, and they were trying to quickly whisk us out of there. They're like, these are like off-road assault vehicles. These are like, we had a couple of what were they? They were like big Defenders, and then we had they have like machine guns on the truck, right? Like these are not like willy-nilly vehicles. And we just had to get to our resort for the night. Like we just had, and night was coming. The air was full of soot and smoke. Like it burned your eyes. There was so much smoke in the air. So again, it just felt like the hot zone. It's just like, I don't know how else to describe it besides that. And people were starting to fight and brawl because they weren't able to do our bags. And there was like fist fights going on. It was just chaos. I remember we're in the truck, and I have some phone video of this. I don't know if maybe we'll put it in here or not, but we're all in shock, just having gone through this. It was like being like literally thrown into the deep end. And we get to our hotel, which was behind this big iron gate on the lake that was there. And it was just like a moment of rest. But the next day we had to go through the freeway, which is the most dangerous stretch of road in arguably the world. And that was like a military operation. We had even more security force. This is when the paramilitary people from the park picked us up the next morning. Right. And they all had like AK-47s, belt-fed machine guns on their trucks. We had our fleet of trucks, which they flanked us on the front and the back. And we had a caravan of just armed guards taking us through this road. And I'm looking at all this and I'm like, even with this, you can't guarantee that I'm going to be safe. That just tells you how war torn that country is and the power that those militias have. They just stormed the capital of Goma and took over the city. Like recently. This is well after, of course, we went in 2021. But, you know, I'll never forget going down that road and just trying to focus on the filming, and you're just seeing all the sea of people. It's the most densely populated rural area in the world. Like there's more people per square mile in those forests than there are in most major cities.
Wow, that's crazy.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
When you're in the woods in the DRC, you hear voices, you hear chatter. So
that's wild.
Yeah, you can literally just be in the woods, and it would feel like just the three of us in Costa Rica, but you can hear conversations going on out of sight, and there's just people there.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's wild. And we got to the park had an extremely good protocol. I want to give props to Emmanuel and Virunga National Park. They couldn't have been better hosts. They put us up in amazing yurt accommodation. The food was actually really good. They had a great French chef there. He was awesome. There was a strict curfew, so there was like no BS. We were not allowed out after dark. We were in a gated, guarded campground, which, you know, they have runs in with the rebels too. Like these campgrounds do sometimes get overrun where people have to leave the campgrounds quickly. So they gave us like all these emergency protocols. Like if this happens, here's the protocol. Here's what you do. Our security team was like doing munition checks and gun checks every morning. Like it's very odd how comfortable you can start feeling around armed guards and like AKs being all around you. Like
does it eventually feel like safety?
You just look at them like another camera. And I know that's very weird. At first it's shocking. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Should I even be here? And then you just look at it as like a tool. It's just a piece of machinery that you need for the crew.
What were some of the protocols? Like what would happen if you guys had been stormed?
So the protocol is get the hell out. I mean, as safely as you can. If there was a firefight, the big no-no is to try to stay together. You're actually supposed to disperse.
Okay.
Yeah. You never want to go alone, but you want to get away from, like, if somebody is attacking you, they're attacking you for a reason. They're either trying to remove you from the situation, from being an obstacle, or they want what you have. So if you all stick together, that doesn't diffuse the reason they're attacking you.
Right.
So that was the protocol. It's like disperse, and we always had a rendezvous point. We always had like a place to go. And we were very, like, every morning there's a safety protocol, and we were talking about the chaos of a bad situation. And just remember, if there is bad situation, your first instinct is to remove yourself from the situation. So how do you get away? If you can get away with another person or have a teammate, that's better, but you just want to diffuse and get out. And then we also had, you know, satellite phones, all of us. We had a lot of emergency services. We knew where the border was. We all had maps. There was emergency rendezvous points in town if we like got separated out in the jungle and we had to make it back somewhere that was more secure. So yeah, there was a lot of protocol, more than I want to go through on this podcast, but enough to make your head spin. Yeah. But it kept the danger present and real at all times. And we didn't really get into all this in the documentary because that's not what the documentary was about. The documentary was about the park, the guerrillas, and the rangers that are protecting them. I didn't want to make this about, you know, the fear and the anxiety of traveling to the DRC.
I mean, it's what they're up against every day. That's pretty
You
amazing.
run through it at the beginning a little bit, but
we touch on. You can't go to a place without touching on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, also really at the time we wanted to protect the people who were helping us.
Sure.
You know, like a big part of, there's a whole world of contractors that are specifically hired to protect individuals in circumstances like this. So their protocols have changed by now. The personnel has changed by now. So that it's, you know, we're far enough removed where, again, I'm not naming names, I'm not naming companies or anything like that. But like their protocol is evolving to the threats that are present. And I know right now this would be a no-go trip. Like we couldn't do this trip today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy that we live in a world that's literally that unstable to this day. Isn't that wild? Like it blows my mind sometimes that there are places in the world we just cannot go.
And this has now become one of them, it sounds like.
Yeah. There are places that are risky to go, and then there's just places that are off limits. And this is a place that is definitely right now, I would say, off limits.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how it can like that. It just goes to show like it can sway back and forth at any time. Really, that's how unstable.
And I have no doubt. I've witnessed it firsthand. I've witnessed the resolve of that park and the rangers and the people that work there. I've got no doubt they're going to get it together again to where it is safe to go. I don't want to say it's like off limits forever, but there are moments in time where things just get too dicey. And I have been asked a lot about like if I'm going to go back and do a follow-up, because if you watch the Brave Mission video, I was inspired by the work that was being done. You know, the guerrillas themselves were just, that's a life-changing moment. I think we've talked about it in previous podcasts. There's these moments of bravery and, you know, growth that occur with taking a risk and coming out the other side unscathed. And this for me was a major leap forward. And, you know, not only my tolerance for risk, but my appreciation for others and how they are risking to achieve things. And, you know, I would love to go back. I'd like to think I will get to go back someday. But it just would have to be under the right circumstances, and you know, now I have a family and everything. Like I would want to see some just better security situations, not protocol. Protocol was great on this trip. It couldn't have been better. We had the best. But yeah, you know, when it comes to trips that I've literally put my life on the line to do, this would be one of them. And I don't know if I would do another like that, to be honest. It would have to be. I'd want a little more certainty. There's no guarantees in life. You can literally get, you know, hit by a bus crossing the street in New York City, right? Like, and unfortunately, it does happen. It's not a joke. But there are places you go where you know the risk is extreme, and this was for me easily the most extreme risk that I took in a location. I've probably done stuff that's riskier in terms of like the filming tactics. I can think of a few. Maybe in another podcast we can get into that, but in terms of just a trip, the place, the DRC is top.
How about a cute moment? How about like a moment of bravery for you? Like, is there any particular instance that stands out? I know we set up a lot of the whole scene taking quite a bit of bravery, but was there any particular moment that sticks out to you?
I think getting on the plane.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's there's no going back. You realize you're going to the DRC. Like the belt is on. Right. And you're on the ride, and the only way off the ride is on the other side. So once and you guys can appreciate this, once you're locked into the decision that you've made and you have to see it through, your brain changes a little bit. It shifts in a way where now you're in fight mode.
Yeah, it's survival.
You're surviving now. But I remember the anxiety of being at the airport and like looking at my ticket, and I'm on my own because I went ahead of the team. Most of the crew that went on this trip came from other places of the world. I was on my own in Rome, and I was again dealing with a crew situation and all this other noise surrounding this. So that was a good distraction in a way for me. But like then going to the airport and at night getting on the plane to the DRC, I had to go through Sudan, which is another dangerous place.
What airline was taking you down there?
I wonder which one. I want to say I took Delta to Ethiopia, or a subsidiary of Delta, but I think it was DRC had their own airline, because I had to go from Rome.
Commercial flights are running
that. I'm just curious.
It was
like,
commercial, but it wasn't. It was, you couldn't get a ticket like from the United States. It was. I flew from Boston to Rome, Rome to Ethiopia, Ethiopia to Sudan. Which was not supposed to be. That was an emergency landing because there was a storm.
Well,
so we couldn't get in. So that was unnerving. I didn't intend to end up in South Sudan. But yeah, we ended up in Sudan on the tarmac for a good while, and then made our way.
Just stayed on the plane. Just sat. You got this. They landed you and then went.
Yeah, we just stayed there.
Well, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Oh, no. Now, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. It was Rome, and we were supposed to go to Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, I was going to get the plane ride to, but
okay.
we got diverted from Ethiopia and had to go to Sudan. That was it. Because I was in I'm like, man, I was in a nice seat on that one because it was like, I remembered vividly the plane to the DRC was like all red interior. Oddly enough, like it was like almost like crushed red velvet seats and red carpet and everything was red. So it just made it more weird, I guess, in a way. And
was it a full flight?
No, definitely not a full flight. Definitely not a full flight. And I did that's right, I met up with the rest of the crew in Ethiopia. So at that point, I was with the rest of the team because we all landed. We wanted to make sure we landed together.
Yeah,
because
it's better to move as a squadron through the airport.
Right, but I had to get on the first flight on my own, and that was nervy.
Yeah,
and it sounds like I guess that's a good point. Something people may not realize is the moments of bravery that you would assume are not always the most nervous moments. It could be little stuff. It can be like the decision to get on a bus or buy a ticket or just saying yes to something you can't get out of.
Yeah, it's pulling the trigger to make a conscious decision of potentially life altering.
And you can always bail. You can always get out of things, hopefully. And hopefully you're self-aware enough to know when to do that. Because there have been times, I'm not going to lie, there have been times in Brave Wilderness where I have backed down. I have said no, too much. This is too far. We had one recently in Japan where I had a bad incident with a caterpillar sting, and we decided to scrub the next day's shoot with a different sting because of that, because I knew it was too much.
Yeah, it was a hairy little moment.
Yeah, I started having allergic reactions.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just have, it's like every decision one at a time. It's one foot in front of the other. And this one was, once I got past all the nervy stuff, it was very rewarding. Like getting to track gorillas in the Congo. Come on, that's
unbelievable.
It was
awesome,
unbelievable, and getting to see them right up close, having a silverback like literally like brush my leg.
Yeah, the one scene is really crazy.
Yeah,
comes literally toe to toe,
just flying out of the brush.
It's funny when people who watch this video, they all think that the scariest thing are being around the gorillas. And I'm like, no, that was like the magic. That was the best part. Yeah. That was the part I want to relive again. I don't know. I feel like everyone who's been listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube probably deserves to see a little bit of the footage. I'm going to skip past the intro. So this is Volcanoes National Park, and I'm getting there. This is the ride in. This is where they're telling the story about the Italian ambassador who's unfortunately killed. And this is the road going in. So dirt road for a long way.
That's their freeway.
Yep. Recent volcanic eruption. Volcanoes there erupt all the time. There's actually a very famous lava lake at the top of one of the volcanoes. It was unfortunately drained at the time because there was a recent eruption. Every time the volcano erupts, it drains the lake. But if it hasn't erupted in a while, that lake pulls up and you can see like a huge molten lava lake.
Whoa.
I believe it's Mount Nyiragongo. Don't quote me on that. Something like that. And you can see all these trucks. This is our military truck here. The one on the back had the belt-fed machine gun.
It's really sticking with me what you said about the most densely populated rural area. Like that's almost like an oxymoron, but that's so strange. I would have never guessed that.
You can see all these people are pulling firewood. That's firewood, that bag right there. They're pulling firewood out of the forest. This is a lava field. So this is where the volcanic eruption mowed through, took down power lines, cut off power.
Wow.
And this is just, this is the little villages that we had to cut through to get to the park. A lot of farmers, they do their own agriculture. Like the people of the area are remarkable. They're all family run farms. So everybody does a job. Everybody is either even the children, they're getting water. They're helping till the fields. They're taking care of the livestock. They're boiling the water. It's living there is a full-time job, just surviving. And
if you haven't seen this video yet, do yourself a favor and give it a full watch.
Yeah, it's worth it. I'd appreciate it. Number one. Number two, I just feel like if you like Brave Wilderness content, this is the pinnacle we have.
Yeah, it's a fantastic.
So these are the volcanoes. You can see it, just absolutely stunning. Mass right here. Those weren't for COVID. It was because we can actually share viruses with the gorillas, and it's not because they're going to get us sick. It's because we're going to get them sick. So a lot of people have asked that question, like, oh, you're afraid to give them COVID? Well, yeah, and everything else we could possibly give them too, because they're very rare and endangered. So this was the first run-in we had with the gorillas, and what was wild about this was this one got into a fight. So you can see here that this subdominant male gorilla got into a fight with the dominant male and got completely owned. And it is sad to see, but here's another shot of it. You can see his face just got split. That's just part of how they do it. And make no mistake about it, gorillas cannot be absolutely dangerous to human beings, but the rangers work really hard to habituate with them because they need to protect them. Otherwise, there are gorillas that they track in the Congo that they don't have a relationship with, different parts of the Congo that are safer, like out of the poacher's realm, so to speak. There are gorillas that they just track through their prints and their droppings, and they collect hair samples and things like that, and they actually don't have interaction. But with these particular gorillas, they need to have the interaction because of the way that they track. And look, there's a baby right there. I'll never forget this movie. Look at this.
How much do you think he could bench press?
So that's the silverback that just got into the fight and won. We did not know he was there. And that's the protocol. Like when you have a close encounter, the goal is they don't want us touching the gorillas. They're not like playing patty cake with us, right? Mm-hmm. They're there to be observed. If they get closer, we don't know they're there. You're supposed to sit in a non-dominant, position, subdominant, mm-hmm. and you're supposed to grunt, like that, mm-hmm. and that calms them down. That's a disarming grunt.
So don't beat your chest.
Mm-hmm. No, don't beat your chest like George of the Jungle. Definitely not. You can see here. This is where from the fight earlier. A little bit of carnage. So, yeah. Then this was probably the coolest thing we saw was them eating this banana tree. They were just ripping it to shreds for the nectar and the water. The gorillas get most of their water from eating plants. Huh. Look at this guy. Look at that little gorilla.
Head to toe.
Just slimed. Just a rare observation. I never thought I'd get to see this happening in real life. It's just something that has always stuck with me as being one of the coolest nature experiences I've ever had. And yeah, I mean, we could go through this all day, seeing the other gorillas.
There he is.
Well groomed.
Beginny.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a beginny shirt. I should have worn my beginny shirt. I have a beginny shirt.
He is handsome.
He is. And he was super gregarious. Like he was posing. There's a point where he's got his hand on his chin. Where is that? There he is. Look at that.
My God.
Like, what a ham.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, look at that, guys. Like I saw that, no further than the wall right there. It was just happening, and no fences, not a zoo in real life. And for me, the most dangerous trip for sure, but the most rewarding trip also for sure. So I think that ties it all back together for the whole becoming brave moment. Was the bravery required worth it? Absolutely. In this case, for sure. Just something that will be etched in my brain forever. Pretty cool. And I'll just finish by saying that definitely, if you want to go on and explore the world and go to places that could be potentially dangerous, just always, always, always make sure that you have someone who's a local that you trust and that you do your homework before going on the trip. If you do those two things, I would say 99 times out of 100, you're going to be just fine. So don't let, the scary nature of going to certain places put you off of experiencing the world, because a lot of those risks will end up being the most important life experiences you could ever have. And with that, I want to just thank Andrew, Asa again for having this conversation. I really enjoyed today's podcast. If you guys have been liking these, tell us in the comments. Tell us what else you want us to talk about. We have been shouting people out and reading the comments, so we'll do that more and more in future podcast episodes of Becoming Brave. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends, and join us next time as we delve into another topic on next week's episode. I'm Mark Vins, and I will see you guys next time.